Good evening and welcome to the Red Half of Sheffield's very first YouTube video. And my name is Noah Snyder, and I'm joined, as always, by Chad Jarvis. Chad, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. You were kicking around the idea of why not take Red Half of Sheffield to the next level and put a face to the voices, an ugly mug to my I don't know what kind of voice you'd say I have, but maybe Kermit the Frog comes to mind. But yeah, I'm doing all right. We're gonna give this a shot with what you're about to lead into here, and see what comes of it.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to do this video because obviously we put out a podcast earlier in the day, but that was recorded well before Dozy Mmobuosi's interview on Rio Ferdinand and Joe Bea's podcast earlier today. And we just kind of wanted to talk about it. Obviously, Dozy Mmobuosi, has been confirmed as the individual who's going to be taking over Sheffield United. You know, God hoping, basically,
Yeah.
if everything goes through with the EFL. But just your overall take, having watched the interview, Chad.
I mean, my honest take, and I said this before we started recording, you know, he's the prospective buyer of United and blah 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 blah. And the interview was a good interview. Obviously, a bunch of people were sold on. He was drinking pints of Guinness in Sheffield and all that. And then, like, for the I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of the interview, it almost felt like it turned into a defend myself piece because of all the, I don't know, if you read on the internet, they're saying he's got fake money or no money or blah blah blah. So he spent about 20 minutes defending himself and proving to Rio and Joel that he had some sort of he's got a place where his money's coming from. He played soccer growing up, and he actually called it soccer on the podcast growing up in Nigeria. So, I mean, and then he had the plan. He outlined it with the plans for what he was going to do. So, I mean, it was a well-rounded interview. And like I said, until you hold the shirt up in front of the Sheffield United logos in the press room at Bramall Lane, I'm not gonna believe it because I feel like we've been down this road numerous times with interested buyers, and there's been a bid accepted, blah 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 blah, and then it goes through all the legalities, and then it kind of just goes away, and you never really hear anything from it. So when this is over the line, I'll give my more like in-depth opinion. I mean, I've kind of been on the outside looking in. I really haven't delved too far into all this. So if it does become, permanent in the next, let's say, month or so, then I'll be able to dive more into it and be like, okay, is this an outstanding dude? Does he got good plans for the club? Or are we going to be out of business in 6 months and be like, oh, now we're in League Two?
Well, so I'll give you my overall take, and then we can just kind of get into some of the things that he said specifically. What I will say is he certainly said all of the right things, all of
Mm-hmm.
the things that the supporters are going to want to hear. He directly addressed the issues regarding the finances, his personal wealth, his personal liquidity, and how he personally values his companies more than they're actually worth according to whomever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the biggest uh, pits of controversy, I have to say, was the fact that his airline. He attempted to start an airline, and it kind of went nowhere. It had no planes, and he quickly kind of dismissed that, saying, "Look, I Nigerian people, I guess, on the whole, have faced discrimination as far as flying is concerned, I didn't really examine it further than that. That was what
Yeah.
I gathered, and that he wanted to create an airline in which Nigerian people might be comfortable. And then the pandemic hit, so
Mhm.
obviously, it would have been impossible to start an airline during the pandemic, and I guess it's been on hold. Over the last couple of years, and he's kind of drawn his attentions elsewhere. But I want to focus on some of the things that he said that I did like. He said he was in Sheffield 6 months ago and that he felt the energy of the city. He was having a pint of Guinness in a pub, which is, these are all things that I think supporters want to hear.
Mhm.
Probably, I think we as supporters would have liked to have heard he was having a pint of Magnet. But at the same time, I mean, I the overall sense that I got from him was one of someone who is genuine. I didn't
Mhm.
detect. I have a pretty good bullshit detector.
Mhm.
Um, I'll probably have to bleep that. I have a pretty good BS detector, and I've accumulated it over a long history of working tangentially in the field of law, and I was not getting BS from him on a
Mhm.
lot of the things that he was talking about. He was talking about the fact that he's done great work with setting up grassroots football organizations within Nigeria. And that could speak to maybe us looking to further grow the game locally, and really try to incorporate local lads in and around the area. I don't know how great our academy has been besides what I see through a very, very small lens. But we could have a great academy in the
Mhm.
future. And if you look at clubs like City, um, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, the big clubs in the Premier League, they have really good academies, obviously world class academies. If we can have a world class academy and develop players where we're not having to buy players, from basically the scraps off of the big six, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term, that could set us apart from some of the, middle to bottom half clubs within the Premier League if we go up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that is the big end all be all. And I'm almost wondering, he didn't give a timetable when when the takeover could happen. I wonder if he's almost waiting to where it's a simple mathematic game in numbers where, it's in our favor that we're going to clinch promotion, and then he's going to go full throttle into, okay, this team's going to be playing in the Prem next year. I want to fully go into this because he could be treading lightly right now. And I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if you could look at Burnley. Burnley's club got taken over by American owners and they got relegated. And their owners didn't jump ship going down to the second tier, and now they're going to get promoted back to the Prem.
Yeah.
Us on the other case, we were so close last year, didn't go up. This year, it's in our own hands to go up. Now, if we bottle it and come third and don't make the playoffs, I mean, he could pull back and be like, okay, this is probably not worth my investment because we'll lose the likes of Sander Burge,
Illiman and
Ilman and
Jai.
Die,
Yeah.
Ahmed Hodzic will go, Egan will go, McBurney will go. So you're looking at rebuilding an entire squad next year if we don't go up.
Yeah.
Is that the is for a new owner? Are you necessarily gonna want to do that to where, okay, I can take a team that's up in the Prem and add a few, pieces here and there, and we might be able to scratch and claw our way out of the relegation zone and maybe stay up? Or do you want to take a team that's probably going to finish next year, if we were to stay in the championship, anywhere from 14th to 18th in the league next year?
Yeah.
Because that revolving door of players coming through. So that's why I think this might be a little bit more drawn out of a process than, everybody's like, oh my God, this could be imminent. Maybe not. Maybe you could just wait till maybe April and see where we end up and be like, okay, now we're going to announce it. I want to take over.
Well, To be honest with you, I think having that little air of uncertainty, kind of more speaks to how genuine he is about maybe putting money into the club. You
Hmm.
know, I think because look, promotion's not guaranteed at this point. We're in a good position, and I think he sees that, and it is a bit of a gamble on his part. I think he does think that we are going to go up this season, and we'll have a new influx of cash just by virtue of the TV rights, and utilizing that, he'll be able to make additional investment into the club, with maybe some of it with his personal wealth, but obviously leveraging the money that we're going to receive at the end of the season from the TV rights.
Hmm.
So, look, the other thing that he said that I think was the right response. You can call it a coached answer. You can call it what you like, and I'm sure there's some of you out there who are saying just that. But the EFL have asked questions of him, and he has answered quickly every single time. That's what he said on the interview. And
Hmm.
again, you can take that with a grain of salt. It's coming from the man himself, but a quick response, and especially if the approval gets done in the next week or so, considering that it's basically been a month and a half long process by the end of it, probably. That's pretty quick for a takeover, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Which means that he'll have had to have proven without a shadow of a doubt that he has the funds to, pay the players' wages, and basically finance the club into the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's yeah. I mean, it's one of those deals where we just gotta let it play out and run its course and see where we end up come the end of the season. You know, I mean, we all want the end of the season to come, and we're only in the middle of February currently. But you know, it could be a certainly bright future for United, and if he wants to buy us and then invest money, we could look to sustain a foothold in the Prem if we were up there, where we're not gonna just be like a yo-yo club, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down every so often, and it's because that gets tiring,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
for sure. I mean, some people were saying, they'd like to see United be the next Brighton,
Hmm.
just a stalwart in the Premier League, and it's a club that's run right. They don't splash the cash all the time, but the players that they do invest in have a profound impact on their squad, and they sell players for decent amounts of money and then reinvest that money back into the club.
Yeah,
Whether it's
yeah.
purchasing new players, improving their ground and their and their fan relations, you name it. So
Mhm.
if we can be run like that sort of club, like a Brighton Hove Albion, I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I would too. I just want to make sure when his business model has a sustainable, healthy run club that in 3 years' time is not massively in debt, and we're selling off the stadium and we're selling off the training pitch, and we're gonna find ourselves mired in League One like Portsmouth is, and just
Yeah.
never like because it's almost like it's on a knife edge. We're going so well right now, and then if it gets into the wrong hands, we could just end up being down there being irrelevant, you
I,
know?
I love this, Chad. This is like yin and yang right here.
Hmm.
I'm the optimistic one, and in here comes pessimistic Chad as
Yeah,
usual,
yeah,
immediately flashing to the worst that could happen.
yeah.
Probably it'll be somewhere in between. I think somewhere in between would probably be a decent yo-yo club that maybe every once in a while has a couple 2 or 3 years up in the Prem,
Hmm.
before being relegated. But look, we're definitely putting the cart before the horse here. I kind of want to get back into some of the things that Dozy Mmobuosi said in like on the podcast about his business, which, to be honest, like I want a relatively ethical owner of United, and of course, it can be said there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, but he said the right things for me, about the type of business that he invests in. His agri fintech business, where he's basically giving farmers the ability to sell their goods to an international market, and allowing them to finance take out loans in order to improve their small businesses in Africa. I mean, I don't know about you, but that I love kind of hearing that. He's
Yeah.
investing back in his home country, and I don't know. It's just I think it's a good idea for a business, and I don't know. I was just a fan of hearing that personally. I kind of
Yeah.
like the business that he has.
Yeah. I mean, you like to hear when a person comes along with that type of business model that, he seems to know how to run it and he's been running it for years. And it shouldn't be, you know, I mean, it's not like he's dealing like running drugs, and that's where he's getting his millions and billions of dollars is through a big Ponzi drug scheme. So, I mean, at least he has some reputable type business. But I just, I can't hard, I for some reason, I can't get over the hump of I've seen too many clubs that have had the new prospective owners come in and they get the crowd all jazzed up, and then 2 years later, it's it's all gone. I mean, it's just one of those. I don't for forever when United came up for sale about what a year and a half ago. I still can't get that out of my head. It's like, man, why do you want to sell this club?
Here's the reason, and granted, it's only been speculated on, but considering the Saudi funding of Newcastle, I think that they don't want to have a conflict of interest between Newcastle and Sheffield United. I,
Yeah,
I,
and that's
I
been the
honestly think that's what it is, really more than
yeah,
anything.
and that's been the rumor for so long, like you said. But
Yeah.
I mean, I hope at the end of the day, if the Prince does sell and this goes through, I wish he would do a sit down interview and just somebody ask him the question. Well,
Well,
when it gets down to it, why was the reason you gave
yeah,
United up? Because your
yeah.
business model was fine. The club was running fine. It was supporting itself. It wasn't losing money like crazy
Well,
or
I don't know
whatnot.
about that, Chad. I mean, we're truly skint right now.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
are.
but since
We haven't
honestly,
paid. We didn't. We were in an embargo because we haven't been able to pay off transfer fees. Installments and transfer fees. That's the reason we're in this position because, and he's selling because we're not in a good financial position. So I don't know. I kind of disagree with you on that front. I don't think it's been as well run as maybe you might think. But that's
yeah,
that's just my opinion.
no, I see where you're coming from on that, but I also see that we've been up for sale for, like I said, what, about a year and a half now. I don't really think that kind of when he put us on the market is probably when he stopped giving a crap and was just like, you know what, I'm gonna roll like this and make sure everybody gets paid, but then the lapses on the loan payment or the payments for Brewster and now if it were those two players that the payments were short on, you
Well, would
know,
he would he have authorized the transfer funds for Now Ahmed Hadzic you know if that were the case? I
yeah,
don't know. I don't think so,
yeah,
personally. So I really think that the driving nature not only is the financial aspect of where the club is at right now, but additionally the perceived conflict of interest of having the Saudi royal family effectively owning two clubs within the EFL.
hmm
So Chad, I just want to ask you really fast. He said that Mmobuosi said that um, he, and this is a difficult conversation sort of to have, but one of the things that he addressed was the naysayers, the people who have had negative things to say about him and his businesses over the last couple of weeks as kind of information has trickled out a little bit more. And what he said is that it could be down to racism, prejudice. I just kind of want to I mean, this is a hard hitting question. So I want to get your take and I'll want to give you my perspective on it.
I mean, it seems like you know it this stuff never kind of goes away, even though they've numerous things have been done to try and, stave this off. So, I mean, even people reporting it seems to just fall on deaf ears, and it just never goes away, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, that's the whole reason why I stay off the interweb and I don't partake in any of that stuff, because it just got one or two bad apples, and they start going down that road, and it just turns into an absolute disaster. And it shouldn't be, none of this should be tied to the color of his skin for any reason.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
100%.
in my opinion, I mean, he's a human being, man.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to excuse there are actual racists out there, but I think a lot of the trepidation that United fans, supporters have had, is just in regard to previous owners or previous attempted owners. I mean, we've been screwed in the past a lot. I mean, you can look at through United's history of who we've had for owners, and you can really see the hesitation, and maybe not willing to believe that he is indeed a billionaire, or 100 millionaire, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it, effectively has the money in order to support the club. But yeah, there is a little bit of that mixed in with it. There's a little racism mixed in with that potentially.
Mhm.
But I think the vast majority, knowing Blades fans like I do, it really is. It's because we've been screwed in the past. So,
Yeah.
I thanks for answering that question, Chad. I know that was a difficult one. Here's was one piece of the interview that I actually found to be kind of really heartening. He basically stated in the interview that he wants fans to have a part in the future of ownership. Maybe having fans be part owners, maybe busting out the shares again like they did in the olden days, and fans essentially getting to own a piece of their club. I kind of like that model a lot. That's the model in Germany. They have the 50+1 model over there, and a lot of countries sort of have that model. Is it effective long term with sustaining the club? Maybe not, but even as a token gesture, to be a quote unquote shareholder in the club, I
Mhm.
kind of like it as a model, and I kind of appreciated him communicating that with the fans, that there is an avenue maybe for some fan ownership in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it came to the fans, when he asked him, I mean, he seemed pretty open and, wants to get involved with the fans, and, making sure that every time they go to beautiful downtown Bramall Lane, they have a awesome time. And, even off the pitch, if it opens the ownership up to the fans, I'd sign up for it. It'd be something pretty cool. Um, to feel like you own a part of your beloved club, I would do that. Yeah, so he seemed to, fan interaction was one of his things, and you know, whether or not he like every quarter had a fan forum or whatnot where we could chime in our thoughts on how the club was being run, whether or not he would give two licks on that one. But yeah, I mean, it would be something different, something interesting that
Yeah.
could could possibly be down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, Chad, I just want to, what would it take at this point? I mean, you kind of alluded to it before, to be, completely on board, with Dozy Mmobuosi's ownership of Sheffield United.
I would have to say, A, hold up the shirt in front of the press room.
Mm-hmm.
Two, when and if he buys the club, fix up the, you know, as he alluded to, the academies, just see an influx of money into the club that, has gone sparse over the past 2 years since we got relegated. Um, just just liven us up a little bit, because if it seems like the club and the fans as a whole have kind of fallen a little, I wouldn't say quiet, almost like tempered. over recent years, and I mean, that's for no fault of anyone's. It's just, you know, I feel like we're getting invigorated coming down the stretch, and especially if we get promoted, there'll be new life breathed into the club and um keep us going. But I just want to see an influx of changes come
Yeah.
around, not all at once, just one here, there over the first year, and
Yeah.
move the ship along, kind of.
Laying out a concrete plan and a vision for the future. I mean, that's
Yeah,
really what I want to see from Dozy Mmobuosi once he takes over Sheffield United. So, anyway, really quickly, Chad, I think that's just about all the time that we have for this first video. Really quickly, if you haven't done so, please follow us on Facebook at Red Half of Sheffield and on Twitter at Red Sheffield. And Chad, where can the people follow you on social media?
they can follow me at cjarvis_13.
You can follow me, Noah Snyder, at Sunpuck on Instagram and at Nestman930 on Twitter. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this, our very first video on YouTube. Thank you.